Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. I'm your host, Daniel Daly. This will be episode 50, as we are going to go over the NBA Finals Game 1, as well as NBA news such as coaching hiring and, yes, the return of Ja Morant's suspension update. I'll get into that, but let's start off with the Denver Nuggets defeat of the Miami Heat in Game 1, 104-93, in a very entertaining game where you felt the arena, especially in Ball Arena in Denver, really feel the energy off of that crowd, and they really were waiting for the Denver Nuggets to have this moment. Them being the favorites all for a week or so, and Denver came out right away and just put the boots to me, right? And you can definitely tell the difference in this type of series where Miami can kind of figure things out a little bit, kind of navigate their way and put their imprints on the game. Denver did not allow that to happen. Of course, being game one, the energy going through those guys, you can see it right away, especially by the first quarter performance by Aaron Gordon, which was the X factor early on. Especially he has been a little bit inconsistent, at least on the offensive end, throughout the playoffs so far. And to see him actually come up big time there and really just impose his will on the start of the game. 12 first quarter points there, and really just imposing his will, getting mismatches on the Miami defense there inside, attacking early on, and that was a good sign for the Denver Nuggets, because if he's doing that and you're getting that type of offensive production from Aaron Gordon at this point, that makes things a lot easier for the rest of the team. Despite the team not really shooting as well from three-point range, I believe they shot 29% from the three-point line. And that was something that you were not expecting, but the Denver Nuggets just controlled everything on the inside and really just picked apart, death by a thousand cuts, you can say, with the Joker really picking them apart and Jamal Murray really stepping up there. I'll get into those guys in a second. But starting with Aaron Gordon was just impactful and a good sign right off the bat to see him get 14 in the first half like that and really impose his will and use his size and strength on the inside and even on the defensive end, guarding Jimmy Butler at various points in time. I'll get into that as well. But his ability just to impact the game that way early on for the Denver Nuggets was a great sign, a real great sign for Denver. Moving on, going to the dynamic duo of Nikola Jokic, who had a triple-double. 27 points, 14 assists, 10 rebounds, and with Jamal Murray, 26 points and 10 assists. These two guys have been the best duo in the playoffs so far. That's why they're in the NBA Finals. Their ability just to score at will and their offensive execution on both ends with dribble handoffs, pick and rolls, things of that nature, and just to be as efficient and as dynamic as they have been. I can't remember an offensive dynamic duo like this in the playoffs to this degree. Probably a Curry and Durant or a Wade and LeBron. But just in terms of efficiency and doing it their way from the perimeter, inside, getting to the basket, shooting the ball really well. The passing, they become the first duo since Magic Johnson and James Worthy in the 1987 finals to be the both pair of teammates to have 25 points and 10 assists in the same game. I'm not going to say who the Lakers did that against, but it was a team in Boston, and Lakers had a good showing that day, I should say. But to be that dynamic offensively, being able to score the ball and create for others from two positions on the floor like that, to be that dynamic, it is crazy. It's just awesome to see as a basketball fan, as a person who just looks at the game, to get that much offensive production from two guys like that, where the creation is on that side of the ball as well. This is next level stuff that we're seeing here from these two guys, just on a night in, night out basis. And really, we're just in control of the game. Miami tried to hit a couple of flurries there in the third and fourth quarter to get back in the game. But the Denver Nuggets' efficiency on the offensive end, even though not from three-point range, the ability to just basically get a lot of points in the paint, hit guys that were cutting, and to score from these two guys to get that much efficiency. And Jamal Murray just continuing this hot streak throughout the playoffs, had 18 in the first half. really setting the tone there. And you can't just speak enough about these guys on the offensive end. Like, they're that good. And if you're not going to stop at least one of them, you're going to be in trouble all night. As you can see, that they're even able to, even without scoring, they're able to impact the game. And the only reason why they're able to do that with the creation is because of their ability to score. Miami tried to make Joker a scorer, and he just refused to score at some points, especially in the first half, going 10 points, 10 assists, and perfect from the field. Really just being efficient and just picking the Miami Heat apart. And this guy's just that dynamic, and it's just a tough matchup for Bam Adebayo. I did say that was an X factor coming into this series, that Bam had to be that guy to step up and see if he can at least even try to create some type of defensive havoc against the Joker some way, somehow. But he's just too small and undersized to go against the Joker, who just has the size and strength advantage, who's going to take his time, who's not going to be rushed, and really just has a pulse on the offense in Denver. And it can't say enough about his performance, and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., who did some things really well. Aaron Gordon's energetic start to start the game. These guys are just stacked top to bottom. Bruce Brown coming in and making some shots there and providing energy as always. You cannot speak enough about this Denver Nuggets team, and it's on full display there. Like, a lot of people haven't seen Denver throughout the season, but the playoffs, they have been able to see them, and especially the NBA Finals being available on ABC like this, ESPN Plus, various other places to see. People are finally seeing the strength of the Denver Nuggets, and we'll see if it continues in this series. But moving on to the Miami Heat side of things. Jimmy Butler's off night. Why is that like that? Come on now. That's the most of. But yes, Jimmy Butler's slow start to the series there was looking to be more of a facilitator, kind of get other guys involved. Not as aggressive as in the Celtics series where he was taking over and making things happen to that point in time. But his ability to sit there and drive, create contact, and get to the line especially was much needed in this first game. I think he was kind of just trying to do the wait and see approach there. Try to get other guys involved. Bam had a good start. I'll get into that in a minute. But trying to see if his shooters can get going, get other guys going, and then probably take over like he has for the majority of the playoffs late in games if the game was close. And that just didn't happen. His shot was off. He really wasn't being aggressive, and that can probably due to the size and strength of various guys that they can throw at him. Bruce Brown and KCP is not small. But Aaron Gordon being able to step up and be length, have the length on him, long arms, arm reach, the size and strength to battle and not have Jimmy Butler bowl through him. That was on full display there, where Jimmy was hesitant and couldn't really match up against Aaron Gordon. And if that's going to happen, the Miami Heat in trouble, because they need Jimmy Butler to be aggressive, be downhill Jimmy Butler, getting in ones, getting to his spots, isoing and taking advantage of those certain matchups, especially trying to be there on Jamal Murray. I thought that would have been a matchup that they would take advantage of, and they were just not able to, and he was hesitant, and that led to the game one loss, despite a lot of other guys trying to play well for Miami, as well as a guy that I'm going to talk about right now, Bam Adebayo. Is he building confidence with the 26 points and 13 rebounds that he had in that game? Game one, looking at that, Bam really taking the offensive initiative to try to keep Miami in it, having 8 for 13 in the first half and then 5 for 12. And people are going to sit there and say that he took 25 shots to get 26 points. I'm not going to do that. The fact that Bam was aggressive at all at any point in this game, in the way he was, and to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to take that offensive responsibility and try to score and try to keep us in the game, I'm not going to be mad at that. He's not a three-point shooter. And when you don't get to the line there, he still shot a pretty good percentage from the field. So I'm not going to knock him for that. But Bam is this something that they can take into game two and him continuing to be that offensive force that he was in game one? Maybe this is something that can ease the pressure off Jimmy Butler a little bit, that he knows that he can go to Bam Adebayo and eventually alleviate the shooting woes of the Miami Heat that I'll get into in a minute, probably open up things for those guys to get easier shots and really get them cooking. And it was just the case in game one where Bam, despite his efforts, couldn't offset the effects of Joker on the other end. And it was very difficult because he played well in this game, I thought, and did what he could against this team that was just clicking offensively. So kudos to Bam for actually stepping up where it's been a question in the past if he was going to step up, especially offensively. So for him to come out right away and get 26 and 13, I thought that was a good sign going forward for the Heat. However, the shooting woes in the Miami Heat, that was something throughout the playoffs. They have been number one in three-point shooting, 39% from the field. During the course of the regular season, they were not. They were 27th in the league, as I went over in my last video about the Celtics in 7 games. And that was the catalyst of their run to the finals, right? The hot shooting streak that this team had. And looking at this team now, especially in game one, it's only one game, but Caleb Martin, Max Strus, and Duncan Robinson probably had the worst performance they've ever had. Combined going 2 for 23 from the field, which is 8%. And from three-point range, one made by Caleb Martin, one made by Duncan Robinson, 2 for 16 for 12% from the field. And a lot of these shots were open. It wasn't like Denver was trying to take away those threes and make it extremely difficult. The Miami Heat got a bunch of open looks that they were getting similar to in the Boston series and just not hitting. And when you look at the course of this series, if those guys aren't hitting shots and doing their thing from that point standard, that makes things, it condenses the floor for Bam. It condenses the floor for Jimmy Butler, who has been operating with space throughout the playoffs. And a lot of those guys are shooting the ball, which is helping that spread the floor for him. If they're not hitting shots, it's very difficult, especially when Denver is already selling out to stop Jimmy Butler and going to be like, hey, we're going to make everyone else beat us besides you. And looking at the Bam Adebayo situation where he's able to score, that's only going to condense the floor on him eventually. So looking at the Miami Heat shooting woes where they, over the course of the playoffs, have been red hot, it's going to be interesting to see how this continues, because if they are not shooting the ball very well, it makes things very difficult for Bam Adebayo, makes things very difficult for Jimmy Butler, and it also makes things difficult for the Miami Heat in general and Eric Spoelstra to create a game plan. He went with Hayward Highsmith a little bit there in the second half, and he was playing really well, able to get 18 points, a guy that people really haven't heard of unless you're in Miami or have been paying attention a little bit. But he came in and provided a little bit of spark. Gabe Vincent was solid, shooting 50% from the field. So you're just sitting there looking at little things there where Miami can at least point to and say, hey, we had some production here, but the shooting woes, if the shooting woes of the Miami Heat continue in this series so far, like in game one, it's going to be very difficult for them to compete in this series. So looking ahead to game 2, is there any way that Miami can continue to compete? Well, if they're able to knock down shots, right? If Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry, other guys are able to contribute from the perimeter. Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry were only guys that were able to shoot a little bit there from the perimeter and provide some spacing in those key points that they needed it. But yes, if Caleb Martin can get back to his shooting performances that he had in the prior series, same thing with Duncan Robinson and Max Strus. I joke that Max Strus had the shooting performance like Ray Allen. I believe Ray Allen went 0 for 13 in 2010 finals against the Lakers. And the previous game, he was 9 for like 11 from three-point range, breaking the record at that time for most threes in the finals. And then the next game just couldn't hit the side of the barn. So I kind of remember that from similar to Max Strus, where they couldn't hit anything. And Max Strus was 1 for, I can't even remember right now, 0 for 10, I believe, from three-point range. So to see the struggles like that, it's like, at least for Miami's sake point, it's like, it can only go from here, right? It can't get any worse. Hopefully it can't get any worse for them, right? Like there's only room for improvement here, which they have been able to do out there. As for the Denver Nuggets side of things, they did have all the rest there. Looking at the Miami Heat going right into that series after their game, especially ended on Monday the way it did. Coming in on a short rest, they now have another 3 days off. That's Friday, Saturday, and they're going to be back on Sunday. So there's a little rest period here. So to have those legs get a little refreshed there. Is this going to be the chance that Miami can take over and tie the series? And that's encouraging. They only lost by 11 points, right? Like, it wasn't like it was a complete blowout, even though it did look like offensively the differences between the two teams, that Denver stuck out like a sore thumb and demolished Miami, but Miami only held them to 103 points. So looking at that standpoint, if they can continue that on the defensive end and be able to stop the Denver Nuggets continue to stop the Denver Nuggets 3-point shooting, and continue to just find a way to cut off those points in the paint and try to make some shots on the other end. That's really what it came down to. If a couple of those shots from Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, if a couple of those shots going, it's a little bit of a different ball game here, because especially with the Nuggets struggling from three, it looked like it would have been a different game. So to see how that plays out in game two is going to be interesting. Denver, of course, took care of game one. They protect home in game one. Can they do it in game two? We shall see. Can Miami answer the call there, especially shoot the ball a little bit better and continue their defense, and see if that gives them enough chance to give Jimmy Butler an opportunity to help them win the game? Moving on here. Just give me a moment. NBA news.